Today on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason. And it's going to be over the Ole Miss Rebels, a team that was 5-5 overall in the 2020 season. And I'd say this was definitely one of the most underrated teams in college football last season. Of course, with a 5-5 record, doesn't really look like Ole Miss was a very good team last season, but this team was extremely improved, probably the most improved team in all of college football last season. I mean, they started out the season with a 1-4 record, and things did not look too good at all for this Ole Miss team, but they finished out the season 5-5 and also with a bowl win against Indiana. So overall, not a bad season for Ole Miss, and this is definitely a team to watch out for going into 2021, and why that is what we're going to be going over here today. We're going to go ahead and get started with Ole Miss's final prediction, and we'll go ahead and get started with your season trends. And this is a team, once again, that was extremely improved over the course of the season, once again with a 1-4 record. In their first 5 games, this team did not look very good at all, almost like one of the worst teams in the SEC, but in the end, this team finished out the season 4-1, so they broke even at 5-5 to finish out the season. As for the wins that they had, they beat Kentucky 42-41, big win there. That was a 1-point win. They also beat Vanderbilt 54-21, good win there. Beat South Carolina in a shootout 59-42. Beat Mississippi State 31-24, and of course the signature win of the season against the Indiana Hoosiers, one of the better teams in the Big Ten last season. Ole Miss got a huge win there, 26-20. So once again, not a bad season for this team, and this team has got one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC going into next season with Matt Corral, and that's going to be a huge player for this team going into next season. He's going to be a major impact player for this Ole Miss team. Overall, though, Corral last season put up 3,300 yards, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and also had a 71% completion rate. So he was outstanding across the board statistically last season. Definitely one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the nation. He's got a tremendous amount of upside as well. I mean, this is the first season where we've really seen him come alive. And Matt Corral, I mean, once again, I think he's definitely a quarterback that could easily be top 3 in the SEC next season. I mean, if you look back to 2019, of course, that was his first main season as a quarterback, played 10 games in 2019. His stats were not very good at all back in 2019. So the amount of improvement that he had from 2019 to 2020 is definitely something that needs to be very notable going into 2021, because, I mean, he's a quarterback that still has got a ton of room to grow and get better. I mean, if you look at 2019 to 2020, once again, that's a perfect example of that. But looking at the running back core, Jerrion Ealy's coming back. Snoop Connor is also coming back. So the running back core looks pretty good. You got 2 running backs who combined for over 1,400 yards last season. So offensively, this team looks really good. The receiving core, you do lose Elijah Moore, top wideout from last season. Moore last season was a pretty big impact player, put up 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns as well. So that's going to be definitely the toughest loss that this team has to face. And then, of course, Kenny Yeboah, your tight end, he's not going to be back for next season. He was an outstanding tight end, extremely underrated, put up 500 yards and 6 touchdowns of offense on the 2020 season. So offensively, this team, I mean, you got a great quarterback, Matt Corral, once again. He's definitely a player to watch out for. Running back core looks great. Receiving core does have a couple of question marks. Dontario Drummond is coming back. Jonathan Mingo is also coming back. So you got your second and third receivers coming back for next season. And as for the second and third, they combine for, it looks like, just over 800 yards. So doesn't look too terrible there. They're definitely going to have a workload next season, considering Elijah Moore will not be with the team next year. That's still, once again, going to be quite a loss there with Elijah Moore. And once again, don't forget about Kenny Yeboah, extremely underrated. But Jacour Pearson, he's going to be coming in from Western Kentucky. He is definitely a name to watch out for moving forward. Pearson, for sure, was an outstanding receiver at Western Kentucky when he played for them, and there's a definite reason why he decided to transfer to Ole Miss, because, I mean, he was a huge standout at Western Kentucky, and he's going to make a huge impact, I can guarantee you, as he moves to Ole Miss. Looking at him with Western Kentucky last season in 2019, put up just over 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. Not a bad season. I mean, he played quite a bit for Western Kentucky in 2019, and he's a pretty experienced receiver as well. Looking at the defensive line, you lose one on there. You also lose one in the secondary. So defensively, that is not a concern at all for this team, for me at least. I think Ole Miss definitely defensively has got a ton of room to improve next season as well. The only main question mark, once again, is in the receiving core for me for this Ole Miss team. I mean, you got Matt Corral. Running back core looks great. Offensive line looks great. It's just the receiving core. I mean, once again, losing a receiver that put up over 1,200 yards for you last season, that's obviously going to be a tough loss. And same thing with the tight end there. Yeboah is also going to be a tough loss. But overall, it looks pretty good for Ole Miss going into next season. I think this team has got definitely some great potential and a tremendous amount of upside going into next season. How far could Ole Miss get in 2021? I mean, this is a team that has got, once again, a ton of talent. I mean, there's a ton of talent across the board for Ole Miss. And the SEC, unfortunately, is a brutal conference in college football, and that's obviously been said a million times just because of how true it is. And for Ole Miss, it's going to be tough for them to be a contender in the conference. I mean, you got Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Florida. All four of those teams, off the top of my mind, are already going to be big national contenders next season. So Ole Miss, it's going to be tough for them to get into the mix, but I definitely think this team could definitely play a role in upsetting a couple of major teams next season. Looking at your schedule, though, of course, you start off the season against Louisville there on September 6th. In a neutral location. Should be an interesting matchup. Then you got Austin P after that. You got Tulane then on the 18th. And then you got Alabama. That's your first conference matchup, and it's going to be on the road. That's going to be a tough one there on October 2nd. You got Arkansas at home after that. Tennessee on the road. LSU. LSU is going to be a good team next season as well. That is a possible upset win, though, for Ole Miss. I could definitely see Ole Miss pulling the upset there. Auburn on the road, also another tough one. Liberty, you got them at home. You got Texas A&M at home. Then you got Vanderbilt at home as well. So you don't have to take a road trip in the first 3 weeks of November. Then you got Mississippi State there. That's going to be a road matchup. Obviously in the Egg Bowl, that's always a crazy matchup between both those teams. But looking at September here, Louisville, I'm going to say all three of these games are easy wins. I think Louisville next season could come to be a decent team, but I think they're going to be kind of around the 5-7 win mark. So I think Ole Miss takes care of them pretty easily. Austin P, easy win. Tulane, also another easy win. So you're going to be 3-0 to start off the year. Not a bad situation at all if you can go 3-0 there. But, of course, Alabama, then you got them after that. Hate to say it, Alabama is going to be a loss. I just think with it being on the road in a tough environment against a great team, I just don't see it happening. I don't see a huge upset win happening there. But who knows? Could be a closer one, but I think Alabama does take care of it somewhat easily there. I like Alabama next season quite a bit. Arkansas, easy win. Arkansas was an interesting team last season in the fact that they actually were halfway decent in comparison to how they've been in the past few years. But Arkansas going into next season, they don't have Felipe Franks anymore, so I'm not too concerned about them. Tennessee on the road, I think that's going to be kind of a tricky one there. Being on the road in Tennessee, that's always a interesting place to play just because of how sneaky of a team Tennessee is at home. But I think Ole Miss does get the win. So you're going to start the season 5-1. You should be ranked decently high at this point. I mean, you should be top 20, I would assume, by the time you're through October 16th. Then you've got a huge matchup against LSU. And LSU, of course, next year's, once again, they're definitely going to be right back to being a good team. I don't know about national contender, but LSU will be a good team next season. And having them at home, I could easily see that game being extremely close. One of the better games in the SEC this season, but I just think LSU pulls it out in the end. It's going to be, once again, very close. But I think that Ole Miss does end up losing it in the end. Auburn, also another close one. So you have two very close matchups there with LSU and Auburn, but I think both of those are losses for the Rebels. So you take two straight losses there, and your record is going to be 5-3 heading into November. You got Liberty there. That could be a tricky one, but I think Ole Miss takes care of it. Liberty, I don't think will be quite as good next year. Texas A&M, that's another game that I definitely think this Ole Miss team will be a contender in. Like LSU, Auburn, and Texas A&M, all three of those games, this Ole Miss team will be very close. But I just think Texas A&M is too good of a team next season. I like them quite a bit. I think they definitely could be a decent contender, especially if the quarterback position is good for them. So I think Texas A&M gets the win, but it could be a close one. Once again, a lot of these matchups will be close. I just don't see Ole Miss on the right side of the spectrum. But Vanderbilt, easy win. Mississippi State, also a win. Potentially close one just because it's on the road. So I will say that it's a close one there. But 8-4 is going to be a record next season. 8-4 would be a great record for Ole Miss. And I think this team definitely, once again, has got potential to definitely upset LSU, Auburn, or Texas A&M. I don't know about Alabama. I'm pretty confident that Alabama is going to win that game there with them being at home and everything. But I think this Ole Miss team goes 8-4. I think 8-9 wins is definitely within reason for this Ole Miss team. And I think this team does have definitely the talent to be able to put up a big season. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this Ole Miss team. I appreciate you guys all watching. If you enjoyed the video, slap a like on it, subscribe as well, as it does help out the channel. But once again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.